in this example, we have 5 steps outlined on our notes sheet, but you may notice, and I've already mentioned a little bit, that some of these steps actually have multiple steps within them. The first step is one of those. The first step asks you to do 2 things. Move the constant term to the right side of the equal sign. Which one of these numbers is the constant? The 32. I have to start by moving it over here. Big difference right now, setting up a problem. When we were factoring, we wanted it to equal 0. When we are doing completing the square, we do not want it to equal 0. So let's move the 32 over first. So please write down on here, we're going to add 32 to both sides. And now we have x squared plus 4x equals a positive 32. So now that we have this written down, we're going to take a look at this writing that's in bold. This is if. You're not always going to do this. If a is not 1, you'll have to divide everything by a. So that's where sometimes we're going to see some fractions show up. So first of all, if a is not 1, is a 1 in this one? Yes. It is. Great. We don't have to do this. Moving on. Step 2. This is the part that it sounds complicated, but there's a simplified way of saying this. We are going to find the term that what's called completes the square, and we'll explain what that means when we get to it, on the left side. And we're going to add this to, and I want you to underline, both sides. And then they've simplified it for us here in bold. Basically what we're asked to do to find this missing number is we're going to divide b by 2, then square it. So we're going to write this down as a formula in parentheses. We're going to divide b by 2, and then we are going to square it. This number, whatever it happens to be, is going to be added to both sides of our equation. So, which number in our equation here is b? Okay, so let's fill this in. That would be 4 divided by 2, and then we'll square it. What is 4 divided by 2? 2. And then we will square it to get 4. Okay. It says right here, add that term to both sides. So we found this 4. We are going to add it to both sides of our equation. So we now are going to have x squared plus 4x plus 4 equals, and our equation had a 32, and we're going to add 4 to that side as well. So again, recapping the step, we divided b by 2, then squared it, and added it to both sides. Divided it by 2, squared it, added it to both sides. Now we're going to take this new equation we've created and do a little more with it. This part sounds very complicated, but it's what we've done before. It says factor the perfect square trinomial on the left, and then simplify the right. Here's what this means. This word right here, factor, it's what we've been doing. What we just created is something we could use X method with. So we're going to factor this. If I set up the X method, I am multiplying to make 4, but I'm also adding to make 4. What numbers multiply to make 4, but also add to make 4, Kyla? 2 and itself, 2. Now I want to point out, these are the exact same number. 2 squared, a perfect square. And here's another reason why we're going to call this a perfect square. The binomials that I get are 1x plus 2 and 1x plus 2. But those are exactly the same. When you have two things multiplying themselves, this times itself, what do we call that when something is times itself? Athena? Squared. So here's what I want you to write. X plus 2 times itself, that is x plus 2 squared. It's very important that you write it this way. Otherwise, the rest of the problem will be impossible. When we factored this using x method, we got the same binomial twice, x plus 2, x plus 2. So, x plus 2 squared. That's this part. Factor the perfect square on the left. Perfect square. Simplify the right. Well, this part's really easy. What's 32 plus 4? Great. That is by far the most complicated step in this entire process. The rest of this problem is actually very easy. So let's recap what we've done so far before we get to the easy part. We moved the constant over so that it equals 32. We did b divided by 2. We squared it to get 4 and added that to both sides. X method on the left to get our x plus 2 squared. Add them up on the right. 32 and 4 is 36. Let's do the easy part now. I want you to rewrite the equation we just created. X plus 2 squared equals 36. We're going to start actually solving this now like a regular equation. First thing I need to do is get rid of this exponent. What's the opposite of squared? Square root. And it says right here, take the square root of each side. Square root cancels squared. So now it says x plus 2, the exponent's gone now, we just canceled it, equals the square root of 36 is what?
6.
That's half of it. 6 and negative 6. So we will write this, plus or minus 6. Remember, square root, a number times itself that makes 36. Well, 6 times 6 makes 36. Negative 6 times negative 6 makes 36. You have to have both, because that sets up the end. Set up the two possibilities, set it up for positive 6, set it up for negative 6, and solve. This is the super easy part. X plus 2 equals positive 6. X plus 2 equals negative 6. And we just solve a couple little one-step equations here. Subtract 2 on both sides, and you have your two answers. X equals 4, and x equals negative 8.